Alright, so welcome back to another review. So this one goes out to the all Apple enthusiasts here, as well as my fellow audio enthusiasts that are genuinely wondering whether Apple really struck lightning twice with another set of wireless earphones. Well, look no further. Today we are doing a comparison between the brand new AirPods Gen 4 with active noise cancellation and the Apple AirPods Pro Gen 2, which has been out on the market for almost 2 years at this point. So, here are my questions. Which of these two sound the best? Which has the better noise cancelling features? And which gives you the best bang for your buck? Well, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. Now, starting off with the contents here, these two are going to differ just a bit. The new 4s only include the warranty, controls, the earbuds with their case, and that's about it. On the other hand, the AirPods Pro feature the same things and include the replacement ear tips that come in extra small, small, and large. Now the medium come included on the pods by default. And they also include a USB-C to USB-C charging cable. That's about it. They're pretty bare bones and don't really have much except for what you need to make the product work. So let's look at the build quality and the features of these two. The build on both of these is Apple standard. They're both made of plastic, yes, but it's a high quality plastic that I wouldn't say is going to withstand the, test of time for decades to come, but it's definitely, decently reliable. Now between these two units, I will say that the AirPods Pro's case hinge does feel a little more sturdy than the AirPods 4. When you open and close the two units, you can definitely feel the Pro's hinge is a little sturdier, a little softer. Other than that, you'll notice that they both have the speakers built in to indicate when the case is opened, as well as being able to find them using the Find My features on Apple products. So both of these do the typical earphone controls, play, pause, next track, previous track, etc. The key difference here is that the Pro 2s allow you to adjust the volume on the buds themselves by swiping your finger up or down on the stem. The 4s unfortunately cannot do that. You gotta do it on your phone or on your Apple Watch. Other than that, they're exactly the same in terms of functionality and controls. Now there is one thing to mention here. The Pro's battery life will last a little longer than the 4s with ANC. Both cases will help your overall battery last up to 30 hours on a single case charge. But the Pro buds will last up to 6 hours using ANC, whereas the 4s will last about 4 hours with ANC, 5 hours without. Now I must say, in real world usage, the 4s with active noise cancellation lasted around 3 hours or so before having to put them back in the case, 3.5. On the other hand, the Pro 2s lasted around 4 to 5 hours on average. As for the range, I've tested both of these here in my apartment as well as in my office space, going up to grab a snack, my energy drink from the fridge, coming back to my desk, stuff like that. And no blips or skips of any kind, so I was very pleased to see that. Now let's talk about this type of sound, or lack thereof. Talk about ANC here. Here's where you're really going to want to pay attention. So when both of these are set to off, meaning no ANC whatsoever, just standard buds with music playing or sound, the Pro 2s do a bit of a better job at sealing away background noise. Naturally, these are a sealed off headphone with earbuds to make sure that they provide a good seal in your ears. On the flip side, these are an open concept. They don't go inside your ear, they stay on it, right at the edge. Now these actually make the background noises sound muffled as opposed to just blocked off, if that makes sense. Now turn on transparency mode on these two, and the 4s actually do a bit of a better job at letting outside noises in. However, outside noises and voices do sound a slight bit more natural on the Pros too, as opposed to the slightly brighter, kind of like nostalgic tone that the 4s give them. And when talking, your voice will sound much less muffled than with the Pros too. Let's take it a step further. We turn on adaptive noise cancellation. The 4s will seal away a little bit more of that noise altogether. However, I did feel that slight bit of pressure that most ANC devices introduce. And we're talking in a loud setting, meaning this is doing some hard work to get rid of that noise. Not a crazy amount of pressure, but still, there was something there. I don't feel that on the Pro 2s whatsoever. Now, as for full-fledged noise cancellation, I do start to feel the pressure here on both of them. So I don't use this mode whatsoever unless it's absolutely necessary, like you're on a bus, a plane, your old lady screaming at you, stuff like that. So out of these two, the Pro 2s do a slightly better job at blocking out outside noises. I will say though, the pressure does feel different on each device. The Pro 2s apply it closer into your ear, so you feel it like closer to your brain. And in my opinion, it feels a tad stronger than on the 4s. We're talking full noise cancellation once again. On the other hand, the 4s apply this pressure right outside of your ear, right at the entrance. Out of these two, I do prefer the feel of the 4s when it comes to that noise cancellation doing its thing. Now let's go ahead and listen to some mic tests of both of these across all 4 modes. Check it out. This is a recording of the Apple AirPods Gen 4 with active noise cancellation. So this is the premium version of the Apple AirPods Gen 4. 1, 2, 3. This is a sound test, a mic test for the Apple AirPods Pro Gen 2 in a private setting. Here in my bedroom, testing 1, 2, 3. Right, so this is a recording of the AirPods ANC 4s. This is with absolutely no ANC enabled in a very public mall setting. This is what the mic sounds like. 1, 2, 3. A, B, C. This is a recording of the Apple AirPods Pro Gen 2 in public mall setting with absolutely no ANC turned on. 1, 2, 3. This is a recording of the Apple AirPods Gen 4 with ANC with transparency mode enabled in a public mall setting. 1, 2, 3. This is a recording of the Apple AirPods Pro Gen 2 in a public mall setting with transparency mode enabled. Testing 1, 2, 3. This is a recording of the Apple AirPods Gen 4 ANC, this time with adaptive noise. So on, not fully noise cancelled out in a public setting in a very crowded lab. 1, 2, this is a new test of the Apple AirPods Pro Gen 2 in a public mall setting with adaptive noise cancellation. On, testing 1, 2, 3. This is a recording of the Apple AirPods Gen 4 in a public setting with full noise cancellation. On, testing 1, 2, 3. Public now. This is a recording of the Apple AirPods Pro Gen 2 in a public noise setting with full active noise cancellation. Testing 1, 2, 3. Now let's discuss the comfort of these two. This will, of course, all depend on your preferences, what you're comfortable with, your ear shape and size. But I actually find that the AirPods 4 fit my ear a little better than the AirPods Pro do. I've always been someone who, suffers from earbuds just falling out pretty easily, slipping out, feeling uncomfortable. And even though the Pros are the pair that kind of triggers this the least out of all the earbuds that I've ever tried, which is why I own them, it still happens. Especially if you're outside, you're doing something, you're walking outside on a hot day, and your ears just start to get a little sweaty, you can kiss the Pro 2s goodbye. For some reason, all earbuds, earphones, IEMs always make me feel like the buds are slowly starting to slide out and fall before I know it. Thankfully, no matter how much I shake my head and try to get them off, the AirPod 4s, they just stay in there. I'm gonna repeat this from the previous video. Thank you for updating the shape, the design of the AirPods, because the good old AirPods Gen 2, Gen 1, the wired earpods, they were okay, but I couldn't really wear them for too long because I just wiggle them a little bit, move your head a bit, they fall out of place, they just feel uncomfortable. These don't. They feel super nice. They just stay in there. Everything just works. Now, let's talk about amplification here. On my iPhone 13 Pro, I use both the AirPods 4 and the Pro 2s at around 9 out of 16, or maybe 10 out of 16 for those, quieter sounds. Not that amplifying these really matter, they run on their own, DSP process and their own internal amplifiers, but the intention for this is just so that you understand how loud these can get, and if you've been watching my content for quite some time, I listen to music at moderate volumes, not crazy loud, but definitely not quiet. Yeah, it's pretty satisfactory. 50%, I'd say that's a success. 50 plus. Now, for the moment we've all been waiting for, let's talk about the sound quality of these two earbuds. Just a heads up, all comparisons will be made using both of these with adaptive noise turned on. I find this is the most common type of use case for the ANC headphones. Most people want the unimportant stuff canceled out, but want to keep some of that background noise for self-awareness. And in my personal experience, it actually works quite well, It doesn't cancel everything out, it just keeps the most relevant things, enough stuff to give you that main character, background music, walking around the street kind of vibe, but doesn't just bring everything in all together and drown out your music. It's a good balance. Plus, I won't use these in transparency mode for the sake of the review because most people looking for these will most likely want them for their ANC capabilities. But hey, let's not waste any more time, let's jump right in. So in general, just all of the sound in general, I will say that due to the nature of the AirPods 4, these will have a more open sound akin to an open back headphone, as opposed to the Pros 2, which are earbuds, and do provide that seal. These will sound a lot closer to a semi-open headphone. Thankfully, they don't sound just like a closed, like no sound can escape. There's a wall, a barrier because of that closed back nature. They do allow some of those sounds to pop out, but they're definitely not as open and free sounding as the AirPods 4. So starting off with the bass. Electronic bass is stronger, punchier, and overall has a deeper rumble on the Pros 2 than on the AirPods 4 by a considerable amount. You don't need to be an audiophile to put these on back and forth and say, yeah, these are definitely bassier. Both of these, however, are on the bassier side of things. I can see, either one of these appealing to bass heads, but the Pros 2 a little more so. Though they're not exactly bass cannons either, so do not step away from this thinking these are bass cannons, they're gonna knock your socks off. Not exactly. They're just, bass present. They got good presence, good energy to them. These a little more so. So let's bring an example here. We got Zealots of Stockholm by Childish Gambino. At the minute 35 mark, the bass note sounds very full on both of these. Now the 4s deliver a slightly crispier note. It's got a little more of that zing going on there. Got a better texture. On the other hand, the Pro 2s delivered with a bit more warmth to the note. Now at the 3:05 minute mark, where the dip occurs and then the recovery, the Pro 2s delivered a slightly more powerful rumble at the lowest end of the note, though both actually did pretty well. I was quite impressed with that. Now, bass guitars do sound a slight bit better on the Pros 2 here as well, though I will say neither of these really, wowed me with their performance. They're quite good for being tiny drivers though. The 4s actually give bass notes a little more growl to them and texture on the lower end of things, surprisingly. However, on the bass guitar's mid frequencies, the Pro 2s have a slight little extra bit of like tangibility to the notes, where the notes being played sound a little more solid and impactful compared to the 4's slightly more loose and woolly performance by comparison. Now, I am surprised to say that in the mid-bass category, which a lot of consumer-grade headphones tend to screw up pretty easily, both of these performed quite well. Though, I do feel that the 4s did a tad better than the Pros here. Let's bring in an example. We got The Hammer by Deathclock. Now, the combination of bass guitar and low guitar notes create a very warm chug throughout the entire track. While both of these do sit a bit north of neutral in the mid-bass category, the way they do mid-bass will come across a bit differently. Because of their builds, the Pro 2s position the mid-bass a little closer to your ears, which comes across as a tad like warmer, a tad more intimate, closer to you, hugging you. The 4s, on the other hand, keep it a little more on the open side, where it sits a little further away from you. A little farther away from you. I'll get it right. At the 30-second mark, where the second bass note comes in, the Pro 2s actually deliver a cleaner performance here, whereas the 4's reproduction of the note comes across as a bit more of a hum, as opposed to like a clean, solid note. So overall, I will say I do prefer the Pro 2's bass performance over the 4's, all things considered, but they're really not like a huge night and day difference in this category. So don't make your decision off of the bass alone. Now let's talk about the mids here. So I wouldn't call either of these mid-forward or mid-centric in any way. Out of the two, the 4's deliver a more airy, floaty female vocal performance and are slightly more forward compared to the slightly more laid back and sweet vocals of the Pro 2s. I can say the same for male vocals. Neither of these really made them pop and be the star of the show, but the 4s definitely brought a little more life to them, while the Pro 2s kept them a little more boxed in and tame. Now, same thing for cellos here. The Pro 2s deliver a more hefty and robust sounding cello performance compared to the slightly more nasal but wispy and light cello on the 4s. I did notice the cello pop and stand out a tad bit more on the 4s though. Both of these leaned towards the lighter side, but out of the two, the Pro 2s deliver a performance that is ever so slightly closer to what a natural cello sounds like. Now let's bring in an example here, Tank by the Seatbelts. The lower end brass instruments have a bit more heft and volume on the Pro 2s, though neither one of these ever really gave them that solidity, that rumble, that buzzing sound that they're supposed to have on the lower notes played by the lower end brass instruments. Now, upper end brass instruments like trumpets have a bit more presence and flair on the 4s. They sound a tad bit more like a live performance, like how trumpets should sound in real life. Though neither one of these ever really wowed me here. Neither one of these got like, oh, that's so close to accurate in real life. But they were pretty good. Now, the saxophone solo at the minute and a half-ish minute mark here actually impressed me a little bit more on the 4s than on the Pro 2s. It had a slightly airier and honky sound to it, akin to that of a real saxophone. All throughout the track, the strumming of the guitar and the shaking of the maracas definitely popped out a little more on the 4s thanks to their lighter, more airy sound as opposed to the Pro 2s. Now let's discuss the high end here, the treble region. In the consonant region, you know, where all the S's and the THs pop out, the 4s can get ever so slightly sibilant, but just a hair. And this is only on the most treble-heavy tracks. You know, stuff like Bangarang by Skrillex and Cyrus. On the other hand, the Pro 2s never really did that for me at all. They got kinda up there, but never got close to crossing that line. I will say that the 4s do a better job of bringing forward the tiny high-end details in tracks, you know, things like the sizzles and the wispy noises and electronic music that plays in the background, kind of providing like a kind of sound. As for cymbals and hi-hats, it is actually a night and day difference here. It really is. The 4s bring them much closer to the neutral side than the Pros 2 do. I also would have liked it if they were brought forward just a little bit more though. Like the high end itself, you know, some peaks, some dips here and there. This is definitely not a bad dip. It's closer to neutral, but it's not as present as I would have liked for it to be. Now that being said, it's not that cymbals and hi-hats don't exist on the Pro 2s. They do. And they sound, you know, good, discernible, but they're on the darker side. They do not pop out and stand out as much as on the AirPods 4. Which brings me to my next point here. Neither of these have like amazing treble extension. They do roll off semi-quickly, but the 4s do catch a bit more of those details in the upper high end. So generally speaking, in the treble side, while I wouldn't call either of these, you know, like excellent in terms of treble presence, you do get the darker side of treble on the Pros 2 and the lighter side, the silvery side, on the 4s. For critical listening, I actually prefer the tuning of the 4s in this case. Now let's discuss the Soundstage and the imaging capabilities here. So in terms of width and space, they're both relatively narrow, as can be expected from an earbud. Same amount of width with these two, not really any difference that I could perceive. In terms of imaging, both of these actually impressed me for what they are. I mean, for a tiny pair of wireless earbuds and earphones, they have some excellent imaging capabilities. If you're like, you know, like me, you're really A-Bing these back and forth, let's see the differences, a person with a very clinical ear may notice that the Pro 2s are ever so slightly better at imaging, ever so slightly. For the less discerning person though, honestly, it'd be really tough to notice. So, all of that being said, let's discuss our conclusion. Both of these are actually really impressive pairs of earbuds and earphones, especially for being a wireless setup here. I'm actually, you know, I'm impressed with what Apple's managed to do ever since they started in the wireless audio space. Thanks to the new AirPods 4 having ANC capabilities, now you don't have to go with the Pro 2s if you really want that ANC, or you don't have to shell out for the AirPods Max to get that ANC either. Now it's just a matter of, you know, picking your poison. What kind of bud do you prefer? Earphone, earbud, and what sound do you prefer? Here's the breakdown. So if you want a more relaxed listening experience with a darker sounding high end, smoother, buttery mids, and a thicker rumble in the bass. Also, if you're on team IEM or earbuds and you prefer a silicone tip giving you that sealed off experience if you really want it all the way in. And if you really just want to have volume control on your earbuds, like no matter what, like I have to be able to control them off of the earbuds. Maybe you don't have an Apple Watch. Maybe you leave your phone at a distance and you just go walk around and you need to control the volume in case something happens. If you really want that, the Pro 2s will not disappoint. They're amazing. Now, if you want a more clinical, energetic midsection, a silvery high end, and bass that is, you know, pretty deep, but it doesn't have to be the biggest, deepest bass on the market, it's not your highest priority. Also, if you prefer a more open listening experience, if you can't stand the sound of like, you know, having that isolation, except for when you really need it, like ANC, noise canceling features, or if you just can't stand the feeling of, you know, a little thing going into your ear, just penetrating you. It feels weird. I don't like it. If that is the case, the AirPods 4 actually won't disappoint for Apple's entry-level wireless earbud. And that goes for the regular AirPods 4s without ANC, because they sound remarkably similar. As for me, I'm not gonna lie, sorry audiophiles, I know these have been revered in the audio space, but all things considered, I actually prefer the sound of the AirPods 4 more than the Pros 2. They just align a lot better with my sound preferences, they check off more boxes across the spectrum of music that I listen to, and are much more enjoyable to wear. I found myself reaching for the AirPods 4 a lot more than I ever did with my Pros 2 when I got them. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope this helped your personal purchasing decision, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, ciao.